Hi everybody, Metha here, and thank you for once again joining me on my journey as I go through my favorites list on fanfiction.net. So this is still a bit to go. So I believe there'll be like one more video of stories from 2010. Or at least the next video will be me going into 2011, so that'll at least be a bit of progress being made. And my reading wise, like the videos are here, I'm actually reading a bit further ahead, so I'm actually got a further bit. So I'm in reading stories from 2011 now, so at this rate I'm going, hopefully 2 more years of this, and then we'll be done with this. And then, who knows, maybe I'll start with one of the other sites that I have a whole bunch of fanfics followed on. But let's dive in with this one from here. Starting with The Fracturing of the SOS Brigade by Cyberbanjo. And this is a Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya fic that's pretty short, and it's basically Kyon gets betrayed by a bunch of people and then gets Haruhi to fix everything. The initial premise is similar to a previous story that I've covered called Error in Calculation by Durandal, but it's handled much differently here, and I would say this is very much the lesser of the two stories if I had to directly compare. Unlike the previous story, there's not really any time to breathe. It's just everything is happening super fast, and it's like one betrayal after another, and so there's no stopping. It's just, okay, this happened, and this happened, this happened, and you never get time to reflect or sit down and analyze, what is going on, or how like, you don't get any introspection of what is happening. And so, because it's just event after event after event, it gives you shock fatigue, and you eventually just become numb to the events that are happening. If it was, so while it's okay, and it's just not good by itself. Like, if this was like the season finale of a TV show, I think it would work better, because you would have had that season to build up the emotional connections and the introspective moments in that, and you can end it with this, hey, this is a pretty good action finale or stuff like that. But here it's empty because you're just judging it on the only emotional connection you have is the previous emotional connection you have if you've read the original Haruhi Fix, or not Fix, the Haruhi stories. And I don't judge them based on that. I judge based on what's here, and what's here by itself as a season finale, it's basically a lot of action and not really a lot of substance. So it's fine if you want that. If you want to have just a season finale fic, and you want to go in bringing in just your love of Haruhi, that's totally fine, and I think it works as a pretty good action thing. But if you've never seen Haruhi, you wouldn't really enjoy this at all, and I feel like it doesn't stand by itself, and so it's going to fall off my list. Number 2 for this video is Proof That Killer Bee is Rubbing Off on Naruto by Ichi Lover 3, and obviously it's a Naruto fic. And this is a super, this is a one-shot, one-joke fic that, I will say it can be considered racist. It's a joke, but it could be considered racist. So, like, I didn't watch Naruto till the end. I know what happens, but I didn't actually watch the series, so I never actually saw how Killer Bee was portrayed and stuff, aside from how he's been shown in other fics, where he's always rapping all the time, and he has darker skin. So that's where the stereotype here is that, hey, Naruto hung out with Killer Bee a lot, and now he's basically been taught in the ways of the hood. of all the black stereotypes you think of. Low hanging pants that are basically down at his knees, big ass chains all the time. Walking with swagger, all that stuff, and then like the way they talk, and then freaking Hinata shows up with a jokey scenario to more fit the kind of girl that he would want, and it's a short jokey thing that I did laugh at, I'll admit, but I can very easily see how people can take it as racist as well. And also, I don't think it's like super hilarious or something that I would read, or even with the racial stuff that I would read again and again. I think it's like I said, like I can see why it's racist, but I did laugh at it, so I wouldn't be surprised if somebody wanted to look at it once. But I don't think it's something that anybody would really look at more than that, and it's not going to stay on my list. Now we go into Persona stuff with Again, and Again Once More by GingerAndRust. And this is a mix crossover between Persona 3. I don't really consider it a crossover, but so it's a Persona 3 and Persona 4 mix fic. I don't really consider those to be a crossover, because in the games they interact with each other, and I'm not even talking about with like Persona 4 Arena or stuff. Like in Persona 4, you go back to the city of Persona that was the home of Persona 3, and you interact with some characters from Persona 3. So I feel like this, like, it's not saying whenever you see a Persona 3 or Persona 4 crossover fic, it's not really a crossover. They're sequels to each other with just unconnected sets of characters to a degree. But anyway, here, this is what it is. It's during the time of Persona 4. Turns out that the main character, Souji, is getting a whole bunch of memories of Minato and Minako, Persona 3's protagonists, and basically ends up running into C's, a couple members of C's, and brings them in to help solve the Persona 4 case. So I get that Persona 4 is seems to be the more popular one, in the more popular sense. Me personally, I prefer Persona 3, and I love Persona 3's characters, but I can understand why, a lot of the Persona 4 seems to be the more popular in the fics and stuff. And I was intrigued with the story. I ran through it's decently long, over 100k words, and I ran through this pretty quick. The only thing, I was pretty much intrigued the entire time. The story has a happy ending that wraps up everything nicely, and there's not really plot holes or anything. But at the same time, when it ended, I was kind of underwhelmed or something. I felt like something was missing, but it wasn't plot holes, or like I said, or anything. It just felt like a, I don't know, I felt like it should have been something bigger. The main protagonist basically becomes an amalgamation of Persona 4, and then the two versions of Persona 3, where one, it was the female protagonist who decides to not go to the end, and then the Persona 3 male protagonist who actually who finishes the game. And that creates a bit of drama where you're between the characters of the new investigation squad from Persona 4, who are like, oh, you seem to be a different person, are you still you anymore, and stuff like that. And I enjoyed that a lot. I enjoyed the C's members, because again, Persona 3 is my favorite, one of my favorite games, and I prefer that to 4. And we don't get to see a lot of them. There's really only 3 C's members that actually become relevant to the plot, and I would have liked to have seen more of them. That would have been, and interacted with them more. That would have been fun, but I still enjoyed it because the focus we get on them is interesting, and the way the story was done, I think, works. And it's like I said, I was engaged throughout the whole thing. I just found the ending to be a bit underwhelming. But at the same time, I'm still recommend this story, and I think it's really good, and it's going to stay on my list because I did enjoy it a lot. Now we come back to Naruto fic with Sexplosion by Manos Kyan, and this is a it's a joke fic, but it is a fuller story, sadly incomplete, but you don't always get what you want. But here, basically, on the night of the QB attack, right before he was sealed, the QB released a huge cloud of pheromones, which just made everybody in Konoha go sex crazy for consistently. And so that happens, and then we jump forward to the start of Naruto's ninja career, where it's just everybody is just wanting and like constantly horny and needing sex all the time, and that creates a different morality that's happening in the city, and how people are dealing with each other. The main form of humor is obviously sexual humor, and it's all based on like some kind of sexual activity or sex act. So if that bothers you, obviously don't read this. At the same time, there's nothing really explicit that happens. There's a lot of implication and there's setup, but the actual act is never really shown on screen. So I feel like I'm fine with giving links to this. And like I said, it's not, even though it dives into the sexual stuff, the humor is not very, it's not, it is explicit or like raunchy, but instead of going into the more like explicit or like, all about just the actual act itself, it's more in an over the top and hilarious direction of just like it's more, rather than like gross out humor or that kind of stuff where you're going into the depths of it, it's more like, oh my god, that's happening, or like something like that, more ridiculousness, which I find to be really, really funny. And I really enjoyed this fic, and I can easily see myself coming back again and again, and it's gonna stay on my list. Right. Now it's another Naruto fic with Troubles of a Genderly Confused Teen by Lanky Nathan. And this one is, again, this takes place around, I'm not quite sure. I think it's still like when he's still like 12, because you get into weird things with Naruto when it's not explicitly defined. Tsunade's Hokage, but Sasuke is still there, so like, unless something changed, it's pretty brief window of when that could be. And this one's just a story about like Naruto has a problem where his sexy jutsu just keeps activating, and when he activates, he can't turn back for a bit, so he's just constantly being stuck in his female form and then male form back and forth for periods of time. There's no big missions or anything here. The story isn't complete, but it does go past like one arc, which is pretty damn long. We get the beginnings of a second before the story ends. And it's just a bunch of just fun, light times that are happening with this problem occurring, and Naruto dealing with it around the village. It's nothing spectacular, and it just brings, constant like small laughs and just fun, easygoing chuckles, like kind of like a familiar sitcom or something. So I enjoyed it. It's fun, it's easygoing, feel good vibe, and it's gonna stay on my list. After that is Zero's Shock by Rogue Vector. And this is a Familiar of Zero fic crossover with Bioshock. And again, it's another story that stars a bunch of interesting characters that ends before the plot ever really gets rolling because the author didn't continue it. Here, this is like Familiar of Zero. When Louise summons, she gets somebody who's not Saito. She gets Jack, the protagonist of Bioshock, from after the events of at least the first game. I'm not sure if it's after the events of the second game. Might be. So Jack here is portrayed as a pretty stoic and yet gentle giant who doesn't really speak a lot, but ends fights decisively and stuff, and cares about his little sisters and stuff. And we're here after the games. It seems like he's basically become like the de facto leader of Rapture and is like become a hero to the people and is helping rebuild the stuff right before he gets portaled by Louise. And that's where it becomes really interesting, because we have the character dynamics with Jack and the familiar of Zero cast and all that stuff, and them dealing with each other. But then we also keep cutting back to Rapture, because they're not going to just let Jack go, and they're working to get him back. And one of the last chapters actually has them like opening a portal and getting to the familiar of Zero world. So like it's setting up such an interesting dynamic of seeing the splicers and stuff reacting with this world, and it just ends before that. And even in the familiar of Zero side, we only get to about we don't even get past the Fouquet robbery before stuff goes on. So like it sets up a lot of interesting things, but none of it actually gets anywhere. It's all just hey, look at that, like point to the WrestleMania sign, like that's gonna be super interesting, and then WrestleMania got canceled. Or not just WrestleMania, wrestling got canceled. Like that's what it is. What's here is interesting, and I'd say give it a look, but I feel like you're going to be saddened by just how it ends so abruptly, and you're going to be missing out. And for me, it's not going to stay on my list. Alright, we got two more. Next one is, this one's got a big reputation. Another fic. It's In Flight by Gabriel Blessing. So yeah, this is big fic. I've seen a lot of fics after this that have been inspired by this. I've seen many authors who have been inspired by this fic in particular. It's a Sekirei crossover with Fate Stay Night, and I know it has a huge reputation. I know, like I said, I know many people who've been inspired by it. I know I've seen some people who hate it immensely or think it's super overrated. I don't have much to say about it, aside from the fact that I really enjoyed it. I reread it over the course of 2 days, which, it's pretty fast considering, it's 750,000 words, so it's pretty damn long. But at the same time, like, I didn't see any huge glaring problems or like some deep introspection of subtext to find anything for you. That's not what I have. Like, I just thought it was a great Sekirei fic. Shiro is really funny with how he deals with all the girls and stuff. Each of the girls gets more than enough backstory and like character moments that I thought was really great. I enjoyed how the universes ended up blending together in a pretty cohesive and like felt natural kind of way, and I just enjoyed it a lot. I'm definitely in the camp where I think this is good, and I would recommend this fic very, very highly. And I don't have much else to say about it. It's gonna stay on my list. Alright, last but not least for this video is Land of Heroes by Harbinger of Chaos. And this takes place, this is a Halo crossover with, this one in particular is Marvel. I say that because I'll get to it in a bit. But, so this takes place, I'm not sure. So I played the first 3 Halo games, 1, 2, and 3. I don't know the story of 4. I don't know where it ends up, but I think this takes place at least after 3, maybe after 4. And then it's like the Master Chief, Cortana, and like Commander Halsey are on a ship, and then they're like coming back to Earth, and then just as they reach Earth, a new Covenant army shows up, so they attack it and then get sucked into a black hole, which shunts them to a new universe. And that's where you get to choose your own fic. This author has actually made 2 versions of this story. This one, the one that's on my list, is they go into the Marvel universe, and there's an alternate version which goes to the DC universe. Um, that one you can find if you're interested in that. There, if you go to the author's author page, you can link to it. That's not actually on my list, so you won't be seeing it in the next video. The reason why being just because the stories are actually really, really similar. As much as I can remember, I reread this one. I didn't reread the DC version in its entirety, but I do remember that the first like five chapters or so, which involved quite a couple big moments, are basically identical. Just the names of the characters are different because they use the DC cast instead of the Marvel cast. But yeah, so it's more just who do you want to see in the set dressing and who do you want for the characters to be shipped with. The story itself is pretty pretty interesting. It fluctuates between large combat scenes and then more homey character-based moments that build up relationships. I'm not the hugest Halo mark. Like I said, I only really played the first 3 games, but I did enjoy them a lot back when I played them, which granted was when I was in high school. And I feel like what's here, this story, does a lot more to humanize the Master Chief and give him more of a personality than the 3 games really did. There's an overarching goal of them trying to get back to their home universe, which is interesting and doable considering the super geniuses in both of these universes. And it's interesting because most crossovers of that nature where they end up in the universe, they just get stranded and they're like, I'm just going to build a new life there and only end up back in their old universe by accident usually. Here it's a concentrated effort, and we do get scenes of them, like we see them actually making progress on that and see the other side. I just had a lot of fun with this one. It shows Master Chief just beating the crap out of some of the people. This one, like, I'm specifically just going to be talking about the Marvel one. There are some bits that I could have done without that were a waste of time. Like there's in this Marvel one, there was 2 chapters which was basically just Master Chief showing off how much better he is and his tech is to the Avengers, which I felt was like a complete waste of time. But and I remember when I first started rereading it, I was like, this is most likely just going to be kicked off my list. I don't care about this. But as I continued to read, I grew to like it more and more, and I saw why I enjoyed it in the first place, aside from the initial premise. And like I said, there is some like complete waste of story here that could have been cut without causing any problems, but I still thought it was really great. It is incomplete, but the author is still updating. Like literally, the last chapter was updated at the beginning of the year. So even after 10 years, this story is still going. So that's progress, and I think we'll see a lot more of this story to come. And again, you can choose your style, Marvel or DC. I think it's still good, and it's going to stay on my list. And that's it for this video. Almost 500 stories have been reviewed via these videos. A little under half are still on my list. Thank you all so much for watching. If you want to read any of these, links are in the description below, as well as a link to my my fanfiction.net profile if you want to see that. If you want to see playlist will be in the description, as well as a link to a forum where I'm also posting this if you want to read it all instead of doing that. Also on the forum, I do embed these videos, so you can also see it there as well. And well, I do read, like I tend to write out my reactions because I film these videos a bit after I've reread them, but it's not exact what I'm saying here and what is on the forum, so there might be some things I missed out on. It is different content, so you can check it out. Thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like if you like, comment if you think I'm an idiot or you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.